I'm having problems, my problem let me reach out. Looking at this bottle, having nothing but doubt. Don't wanna drink, but it keeps coming around and around and around.
How's it going, guys? So today I kind of wanted to make a video about relapse, being a part of recovery, and I also kind of wanted to talk about mental health and how that ties in with addiction. So I hope you guys did like the last two videos. I'm gonna try to be a little bit more, I guess, enthusiastic about things. I realize that I'm new to this and whatnot, so I'm just learning as I go. So bear with me because I'm sure some of the first few videos might be a little rough, but I'm working on it. So just be lenient. So firstly, I want to talk about a relapse in recovery. Now, a lot of from what I've seen in some of the Facebook groups I'm in, with relation to addiction and recovery and whatnot. Now, I see it's a little bit split. Some people say that relapse isn't a part of recovery, and some people say it is a part of recovery. Now, I'm just on a lot of these topics. I just want you guys to know that this is just my opinion. You don't have to take what I say to heart. You don't have to follow anything I say. By all means, think what you want to think and then do what you want to do. But this is just, my experience and what I can share with you on how I feel about certain things. Now, personally, I think that relapse is a part of recovery. With that being said, obviously you want to avoid relapse at all costs, right? But I think, everybody has a different situation, but when you are trying to get sober, you're going to fail a lot of times before you eventually, figure it out and do get sober. You know, I was fortunate enough where I kind of caught my addiction and disease early enough, where I only had, one major relapse before I finally put my foot down and, decided to get sober. But I learned a lot when I did relapse the first time. I thought everything was okay. I thought I was in a better headspace per se. That's also what will tie into mental health a little bit. But I thought I was in a better headspace. I thought, I could potentially start social drinking, which any addict knows that even when you think you have your addiction under control and you think you can moderate it slowly escalates to the point of no return and just destruction that we usually get to each time we use our chosen substance. Sorry. So it taught me a lot because as much as if I ever get a thought in my head that, I might have this under control. I think I can do this now. I think I could have one or two drinks. I just think back to how terrible my last relapse was, and it just makes me just realize that I can't, have one or two drinks. It has to be, either it has to be zero or it has to be, 24. And ultimately, I'll end up back in the same terrible situation I was in before that, before sobriety. So, I think of people have to go through relapses in their recovery period. And I don't want people, the one thing I would say as advice is that if you do relapse, while you're in recovery, get back up, dust yourself off, call your sponsor, go to a meeting. Don't let it make you feel so defeated that you can't start over again. I understand it's tough, and I know how hard it is, but you really just have to get up, forget the embarrassment, forget the shame, forget all of that, and you just have to get back on track again and just keep going. Like I said, call your sponsor, go to a meeting, whatever you have to do to get back on that healthy track again, because you can't let these, relapses because what happens when you relapse is it gets you down and it keeps you there because you're so upset and so embarrassed that you did relapse or you did drink again or you did use again, and then you just get stuck in that terrible cycle that is spiraling whole to absolute destruction or rock bottom. But as I just think that everybody's going to experience, not everybody, but 90% of people in recovery do experience relapses. I say 99% if I had to put a number on it. Now, I'm just speaking from my opinion and whatnot, but if you go through recovery without relapsing, that's amazing. That's great. That's what you want, but it's not realistic for a lot of people, and I know that. And I'm fortunate enough to, kind of had, only one bad relapse before I finally got sober. And every day I'm fighting to stay sober, right? So it could, every day I kind of fight the not the urge to relapse, but to fight the urge to drink or fight any intrusive thoughts that I have. But I know that I just never want to get back to that point that I was before. So recovery and sobriety is it doesn't take any days off, and it's going to take every single day moving forward, probably for the rest of your life, to fight it. And that's something that I'm willing to do, and I have no problem waking up and fighting that, as opposed to waking up and destroying myself and destroying my life and things like that. It's a much better fighting the urge to drink and whatnot than it is to fight myself. And so I don't really mind. The second thing I wanted to talk about was mental health and addiction. Now, I know these things kind of go hand in hand. A lot of people that suffer with anxiety or depression usually turn to some kind of substance to help fight those mental health diseases, and it's usually a terrible coping mechanism. Now, when I my anxiety was really bad. I was depressed at the time, and I was drinking so heavily. I didn't realize that the reason, one of the main reasons that I was drinking so much and becoming the alcoholic that I was and wanting to drink 24/7 was I was just trying to get rid of, or I was trying to treat my mental health. And, that's the opposite of what that was doing, because if anything, and if anyone, has used substances to treat their mental illness, it just destroys it even more. I would wake up the next day with 10 times worse anxiety, even more unhappy than the day before. But I just continue to, repeat the cycle because of that addiction. Now, once I realized that, mental health or mental illness was a big driving force in why I was drinking so much, or, why it was, my addiction was to the point it was, I began to take a step back. And when I first started getting sober and I was staying in the mental health unit at a local hospital, that I did start focusing on treating my mental illness, because I knew that was one of the keys to getting sober and remaining sober. And, once you talk to a psychiatrist, once I was talking to a psychiatrist and we were trying different medications or upping the dosage on the medication I was currently taking, then that's only when I started to feel a little bit better. But, until I think, if I didn't make it a point to treat my mental illness before I tried getting sober, I don't think I would have been so successful getting sober. You can't just treat one and not treat the other. If you do suffer from both, which usually most addicts do, you kind of have to treat both at the same time, or treat one before you can treat the other. But it has to be simultaneously and whatnot. And without you got to realize that as much as you think that these substances, alcohol, drugs, whatever you might use or be addicted to, they're not helping your mental state whatsoever. I guess maybe it feels okay, or it feels like it helps for the first little bit, but ultimately it doesn't. And I know that it's easy to tell. And I don't, the addiction part is what keeps keeps us trying to use those substances to cope with certain things, and it's not a healthy way to cope with them, and it only leads to more destruction and deteriorating mental health. And it's just you got to really take the step to treat your mental illness, I believe, in order to get sober. Because if you don't, it's going to be a very, very harder struggle on you to get sober than, if you did take the time and put in the effort to treat your mental illness. I'm not saying it isn't possible to get sober without doing it, but, you're making it a lot harder on yourself when, trust me, things are already probably very tough. Because you are trying to get sober, and usually people who are sober, it takes hitting rock bottom to kind of realize and want to make a change and know that they have to make a change. I know it kind of took me hitting rock bottom a few times to finally get my act together and want to do this for myself first and foremost, and then anything else afterwards is an afterthought. But you have to want to do it for yourself, and the change can't start with anybody or anything. It has to start with you. Only you can make that change. Only you can, you got to do it for yourself at the end of the day. I think about that also a lot too, because, like I said in one of my previous videos, a lot of, my big driving force to get sober and remain sober was, my son. Now, that's a huge thing now, playing a huge part in remaining sober. But, when I was initially getting sober for the first time, I knew that from what I've heard and the people that I've talked to, is that it has to be done for you no matter what. You're never going to get sober for someone else. And it took me a little bit to realize that until it finally clicked. But now going forward, remaining sober, as great as my life has been, it's so much better than what it was before when I was drinking. One of my, like I said, a couple seconds ago, one of my big driving forces to remain sober is my son. And, if that's one of the things I have to use going forward, to motivate me, then, that's just what I'll do, because anything you can do and use, and any kind of, method or whatever you want to call it that can help you remain sober, and it's done in a healthy and, somewhat productive way, then by all means stick to what works for you, because something that might not work or that might work for someone or someone else might not work for you. It's really you learn a lot about yourself when you're getting sober, and you learn a lot about yourself when you're going through addiction, and it's different for everybody. There's always a different story, there's always different types of substances that people use. There's everybody has a story, right? And you got to be easy on yourself when you're early in sobriety, because you're learning, right? I'm learning every day. I'm sober. I'm learning how to cope with new things, how to, stay sober, what works for me, what doesn't work for me, places I want to go to, places I want to stay away from, people I want to hang out with, people I don't want to hang out with. It's a learning process, and I know I'm going to be learning for a very long time, probably the rest of my life. And, that's okay. That's something that I look forward to, because I know that I'll keep finding ways to remain sober and live a happy and healthy life. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Just those two topics. Now, I did say in my last video that I was going to talk about, being a new dad and being a new dad in sobriety, but I wanted to wait so I could have my girlfriend here so we can, talk about some things and ask each other some questions. She should be here this weekend, so I'm going to set that up, and she'll be on to talk about, how my addiction kind of affected our relationship, her perspective of how it was affecting me being a dad, and then, just, about my sobriety now, and how it relates to all those things as well too. I think it'll be a really interesting episode, and, we're going to have some good questions to ask each other. and possibly I'll bring my son on so you guys can see him as well too. But we'll see what happens. So I appreciate you guys watching. If you guys did like this video, please leave a like, subscribe if you guys are interested and want to see more. And if you guys, want to talk or you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. I'll reply to everything. But I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.